Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Around the Octagon. Today, I am joined by my gracious co-host, Santiago Sandri. San, how are we doing today, brother?
Pretty good. Feeling kind of lonely on this island, just me and you, man.
Yeah, it does feel weird. I guess Luke and Ryan decided to take the day off. They're on vacation, so we're here to cover this card for you all. And to start it off, I just wanted to say a quick shout out to Conor Matthews. That interview just came out on Monday. Super dope time talking to the guy. Awesome dude, and I hope you guys can all check that out when you have the chance. And moving on from there, UFC Baku, me and Sam, we were talking about this. Potentially maybe fight of the year, Nazim Sadikov versus Nicholas Motta. What was your opinion on that fight? That was just absolute fireworks.
Dude, that fight was awesome. Like every exchange, it felt like the last few seconds of Gaethje Max Holloway. They were just throwing hands. They just put their head down and throw hands. Sadikov was really composed though during those. He was very impressive, especially within those firefights. I mean, he took a huge combo. I think it was something ridiculous, like a 75 punch combo in the first round. It sounded like unreal when they called it out. But yeah, I mean, as soon as that fight was over, I was like, this is one of my favorite fights I've ever watched. I mean, like this year for sure is my favorite fight of the year. A lot of exciting moments this year too, but that fight was crazy. Yeah, very, very lucky to have turned on the TV when I did because that was the first fight I caught and it did not let me down. It impressed me in every single way. It was awesome. And what a performance by Sadikov. I mean, both of them got like performance bonuses, even though Motta lost
Yeah,
too.
dude,
So
both of them got 100 grand. So they between the two of them took up all the bonus money. So
yeah, props to them, dude. That was sick. I think they definitely deserved it. Especially with the card. I don't know. I that was that should have been the main card in my opinion.
yeah,
Or
dude,
the
that
main
was
event.
yeah, dude, I agree. That was an absolute banger. You could hear the crowd in Baku really getting behind the hometown guy in Nazim Sadikov. Also, shout out Nas. We took you by knockout for our prop play of the week, and that cash plus 110. So that's good for the boys. And it's just a banger, dude. Like, I'm seriously with you that very well has been my favorite fight of the year thus far. I don't know if the betting on it had any swayed my opinion there at all, but I really don't think so. That was an absolute banger, and I'm happy that Nas got the win there because he seems like a great dude. And moving on from there, I mean, Rafael Fiziev back in the win column, that's huge for him, picking up a massive win over a very talented Ignacio Bahamondes. It seemed like he was just better defensively, more sound defensively. It was very close style or statistically, and I think all three rounds are very close. But I do agree that Fiziev did edge out each of the rounds. Maybe it was 2-1 and Bahamondes got the first one, but even that, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I mean that was a really cool fight. I think the like Bahamondes, if he could have started connecting with those spinning kicks and maybe towards the end of the fight, he really had good output and started figuring them out. But it just wasn't enough time for him. I think a rematch would be cool. I don't think they should do it because obviously they both have their own paths to go. But I think that fight might play out differently if Bahamondes gets in there again. I mean, Fiziev's on an absolute tear though. On that note, I mean he's just been really good on the comeback since he had an injury and then had a loss or something.
Yeah, he had the
Um,
injury and then the loss to Gaethje, and this was a big bounce back win for him. So I'm happy to see him get back in the
yeah,
win column too. Dope dude, but I like both those
no,
guys. It kind
exactly.
of sucked to see one of them lose.
Yeah, for real.
And then moving on from there, the main event, Khalil Rountree just put on an absolute clinic against Jamahal Hill, swept him across the scorecards. I had it potentially 50-44, to be honest. There was only one official knockdown, but I counted a couple in my books. And then it seemed like Jamahal Hill still found a way to complain after the fight. And usually I'm kind of like, whatever. It's like kind of like annoying funny at this point where I just don't even get annoyed. I'm just like, all right, dude, like, come on, but this is like, come on, man. Like that was just
Yeah,
an ass beating.
it sounded like he was complaining about them not engaging enough, which I don't know. I think that fight to me, as soon as I had a second and third round bet for Khalil Rountree to get that knockout, and he had the chance. He had like two chances there, didn't take it. But I think that was a really big learning experience for Khalil Rountree. I mean, I think he wanted to take that all 5 rounds to kind of test himself in that 5-round fight again. Because I think, if he could last, I mean, he did really well against Alex Pereira. He landed a lot of big shots. He almost finished him once. I remember him, Alex giving his back to him and, getting dropped once. So, just seeing Khalil Rountree be able to go in there, not really show too much fatigue in those 5 rounds. A little bit, obviously. But yeah, very impressive from him. I think it was funny that Jamahal Hill was asking to like engage more, and he like got like knocked down in my book like 3 times that fight. So just funny there. I think that's a guy that's always going to leave it out on the line regardless of what it is. So respect to him. But yeah, no, hell of a performance by Rountree.
Yeah, and he's just absolutely battered Jamahal Hill's legs. Like the beginning of round
Yeah,
two, it was like Jamahal Hill couldn't really walk too well. Movement wasn't there. He's just
yeah,
getting
he knocked him down
he's
once with a kick, I think almost.
yeah, so like he just exposed a big hole in Jamahal Hill's game, and because you see him, he's a big, strong dude, and then he has those skinny ass legs and that torn Achilles and whatnot. So he just completely exposed that hole. It opened up everything for him, and yeah, it was a domino win for Khalil. And if you're looking forward to see what's next for him, I mean, I guess it's all dependent on what's next for Magomed Ankalaev, and if that rematch between him and Alex Pereira is happening, because then you look at it and you go, okay, Khalil Rountree versus Yuri Prohaska, the two guys that just beat Jamahal Hill. Let's make that the title eliminator. So I guess that's kind of where my mind goes. Do you have it any other way there, Sam?
I don't know. I think Khalil would be a good fight against Olberg. I think that'd be a pretty cool matchup. Both guys with pretty heavy hands. I also think Roundtree could fight Prohaska as well, especially with Prohaska kind of coming back. They don't really. There's kind of a weird like gray area right now with that division because Ankalaev won it. Alex Pereira kind of stepped away for a little bit. Yuri stepped away to go do university, I think, go graduate. Congrats to him if he ever sees this. I think he did just graduate successfully today.
Congrats,
Um,
Yuri.
yeah, right. Our biggest fan will probably never see this, but Carlos Ulberg, I think that's a good fight. Plus, Ulberg just kind of got up there in the top of that ranking. And Khalil Rountree's up there too now. So I don't know. I don't think that would be a bad fight at all. Um, but yeah, I think Khalil's definitely fighting up in his next fight. I don't think he's gonna take on Jan or anything like that.
So then what happens for Jamahal Hill? Because if I'm Jamahal Hill, I'm looking down in the rankings. I take a moment to reset, in my opinion. Work on your craft, just get back into your peak physical shape. And I'm kind of eyeing like a match against Dominic Reyes because that's a
That's
pretty
really
big
what.
fight. And
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, that's what immediately jumped out to me was that Dom Reyes fight. I mean, Dom Reyes is obviously on the comeback. He's been fighting really well, and that's a guy that he's been putting on pretty good striking performances too. And I think, I mean, it's going to either be really good for Dom Reyes, and he gets a very nicely ranked win there, especially against a Jamal Hill coming off a few losses. Or, Jamal bounces back at the expense of Dom Reyes' current run right now, but he kind of gets back and against a really solid guy that's, in my eyes, inevitable to come up in that top 5 soon.
yeah, I like that Dom Reyes fight for I like it for Jamal Hill too. You're fighting an older Dominic Reyes, and it's not like Dominic Reyes has been fighting killers recently. I mean, he had the win over Nikita Krylov, he had the win over Anthony Smith, and he had another one in there. I'm kind of blanking on who it was. So it's not like it's an up and coming prospect who's there, and it's not like Dominic Reyes is ever gonna touch the belt again, or he's like that caliber. Like I don't see him as the same level as an Alex Pereira or even a Yuri or I mean the champion Magomed Ankalaev. So I think it's a nice step down in competition while still being a very big fight. And I think it's fun for the fans too. It'll be something people tune into and gives Jamal Hill a chance to bounce back. And it also gives Dominic Reyes, who's kind of a fan favorite, a chance to pick up a win over a guy who a lot of fans don't like. So I think that's another fun aspect added to it as well.
Yeah, I'm very pro that fight. I think I would probably be on Reyes on that fight just because of how their trajectories have been recently. But either way, I mean, there's got to be some good striking exchanges there.
Yeah, definitely. And moving on to our last bit of news before we get into the card, I think everyone is well aware of the retirement of Jon Jones. Congrats to the GOAT. You earned your retirement, but I kind of don't really want to harp on that too much. I kind of wanted to spin this into what is next for the new heavyweight champ, Tommy Aspinall, because you look at the rankings and you look at what people expect, and it's really the name that pops out will be Cyril Gahn, is who a lot of people are throwing around. Even though you look at his last fight against Alexander Volkov, I think about everyone thought they lost. Aspinall's already beat up Volkov. Ranked number 3, Sergey Pavlovich, that's not going to happen. Blades. So it's really between Jelton Almeida, the Volkov rematch, and Cyril Gahn. So, Simon, let's hear your thoughts on this one.
I immediately hate the Cyril Gahn fight. I don't think that last fight, obviously, I think he lost. Okay. I think I should start with that. I think Alexander Volkov should be fighting for the title because he just beat Gahn and he's the number 1 rank now. His last fight, I really think that he won that one. Dana White even like came up to him and apologized, and like afterwards, like during the media briefing, like Dana White was out there saying, yeah, I think I went up there and I apologized to Volkov. I think that, the judges got it wrong. I think Volkov won that fight. So that was just like immediately is like the first few things that came to mind when we brought this up. And I think he's rightfully the guy that should be taking that fight. I mean, granted, like he's lost to Tom Aspinall, but I think that he's really on top of his game. If you can't really get a Pavlovich a shot right now because he was like the last guy Tom Aspinall beat, if I'm not mistaken. Curtis Blades kind of really meh performance last weekend. And then Almeida, like that's another one, but I'd actually be looking at a Jelton Almeida Cortez Acosta fight at this point. But I think that's just way too big of a jump for that. And you know how the heavyweight division moves; it's pretty slow. So I think the guy that should probably get it right now is Volkov. I really don't think there's too strong of a case for many other fighters up there, especially because Aspinall beat them all already. So yeah, probably Volkov. He's like the least recent guy, and he's really been turning it up.
Yeah, when I'm looking at it, it's tough because obviously you have Cyril Gahn ranked number 1 coming off the win over Volkov, which he obviously didn't win like you just touched on. But then you go down to Volkov, and Aspinall subbed him like so easily round 1 the last time they fought. And he just got that Kimura, and it was just like, it just looks so effortless. And it's like, fuck. Like, is there not
Hmm.
something better than that? And then you have Pavlovich, who Aspinall's already beat, who also lost to Volkov. You have Blades, who Aspinall just beat not too long ago. I mean, it was in his like interim defense, which is so weird to say. And then there's Jelton Almeida. And I think the fan in me, in all honesty, I want to see Almeida fight for it. Just like, I think that's kind of the most fun fight there that we haven't seen. But I just have a hunch it's going to be Cyril Gahn, and I don't want to watch it. I don't want to see Cyril Gahn fight for the belts. But it just honestly seems like Aspinall is just head over shoulders better than everyone else in this division now that Jon Jones is gone, which is great and also kind of sucks because I want to see some exciting heavyweight fights. Get Francis back or something.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
So moving on into this card, we have kicking it off Joanna Denise versus Alvin Hines. Denise is 8-1, facing Hines, making his UFC debut. This is an interesting one looking at it because you have the UFC debutant who there's really no tape on. I know he has that undefeated record, but you're making a UFC debut at 33 years old. Makes you kind of think, even with an undefeated record, yeah, not really too sought after. And then Denise, he had a nice win over Chaos Williams not too long ago. I think that was last summer. But then since then, he got beat up by Marcin Tybura at that Jon Jones versus Stipe card. So I'm not too crazy sold on him. But Sam, let's hear your prediction on this fight.
I think I'm gonna go Denise here. First of all, 'cause he's Brazilian. Shout out to the home. But I don't know. I think he's just like fought better competition. Plus there's also like that thing of like he's both undefeated and making his UFC debut, which like we always have this conversation of like clearly the UFC is the greatest fighting promotion right now in MMA. So I think just like the experience is there. And any of those guys that Denise beat would have been a really good, a good debut fight for Hines. But granted that he beat him, and I think Tiberius, he's up there. He's a really good fighter. I don't know. I think just experience wise, that's just what pushes me over to the Denise side. I think the odds are also there too. I mean, like he clearly is a favorite for a reason, and it's nothing egregious either. It's a very believable line. So yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into this one. I don't think there's much to say about it, anything too crazy. But yeah, I think Denise wins this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with Denise as well, and I'm gonna agree with your reasoning there. Just the strength of competition facing that UFC level. He's picked up wins at that UFC level. I think that'll bode well for him here. And moving on, we have a middleweight bout between Cedric Dumas versus Jackson McVee. I'm just not very high on Cedric Dumas, man. I never really have been. You look at him recently, and he got put out pretty cold there against Michael Olszewski, who is a very good kickboxer, but just a kickboxer at that. And then even looking before that, he didn't look very good against Ruzaboyev there either. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with him. But then you flip it over and you have the 6-0 Jackson McVee coming off a couple fights there in LFA, and he just fought 9 days ago. Like, phew. So that's just extremely short notice. So I don't know. It's tough for me picking a guy on short notice who hasn't fought in the UFC. So I'm going to side with Cedric Dumas here. But Son, let's hear your thoughts on this one.
I'm actually gonna go to the opposite. I'm taking the newcomer Jackson McVeigh here. He has a pretty impressive record. I mean, it's not just a regular 6-0. He has six KOs and he has three KOs and three submissions. So pretty impressive record, honestly, from him coming in. And I also think like the things outside of the octagon happening with Cedric Dumas is definitely something that's kind of hard to run away from if you're in that position. It's hard not to have all that stuff going on in the back of your head. So I don't know. I just think his focus isn't fully there. This guy, Jackson McVeigh, got a first round knockout in his last fight. So he's super, super fresh. I mean, a minute and a half in. So yeah, and I mean LFA for what it's worth, it's a good promotion. I mean, it's not going to just have a bunch of cans in there. It's a pretty legit promotion. Obviously not UFC level, but it is pretty legit still. So I guess I'm kind of, going against my point in the last prediction. He's undefeated and, making his UFC debut. But I'm just seeing a lot more from Jackson McVeigh here. And like you said, I mean, I don't think I'm too big on Cedric Dumas. And I think this is this kid's time to shine. Maybe he can get another finish here.
Yeah, and I'm going to say one thing to note. Now, you pointed out here, Son. He has 6 finishes and all come by way in round 1. His last fight, a minute 28. His fight before that, 33 seconds, 53 seconds, 42 seconds, 3.5 minutes, 52 seconds. So while that is very impressive, and Cedric Dumas, I could see him getting finished early. Like, if he were to get finished round 1, it wouldn't surprise me. But I don't know. I'm just going to err on the side of experience here. But I'm just not sold on Cedric Dumas, and I never will be. I don't think very highly of him. And he does show like those fun flashes where it's like, okay, like this dude can be exciting, but yeah, I don't think I'll ever really be a Cedric Dumas fan here, but I will err on his side.
Mhm.
Moving on to the welterweight weight class, we have Nico Price taking on the hefty favorite Jacoby Smith. Smith has been extremely impressive thus far in the UFC, and Nico Price is old, needs to find a way to support all those kids that he has. I think he has like 10 or something like that. So he needs to get back in the octagon and get busy. But Son, I'll pass the baton over to you for this one, and let's hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, kind of tough to bet against Jacoby Smith here. He's obviously a very heavy favorite. He's looked good in his last fight. I mean, getting that by KO in the first round is always a big plus. I mean, he has some pretty decent, like, not when I say decent, I mean like pretty fucking good accuracy and takedown accuracy for striking and takedowns. Pretty like really good output here out of this guy. So I don't know, and I think like Nico Price is good. He's cool, but I think Jacoby Smith is just kind of one of those new age guys that's coming in. He's got a really good record. I think he's undefeated still. He's been making waves, and I'm here to go with that hype train. I'll ride with Jacoby Smith. Yeah, I mean he's a hell of a fighter. I think the output is just whenever I see a fighter with that much output, I kind of have a tough time betting against them, because either we're going to see a knockout or we're going to see a lot of volume, which is going to end up taking those points in that decision round. So I'm going Jacoby Smith. I think he's good. He's obviously a very accurate fighter, and he might have a bright future in front of him. I'm excited to see how he performs this weekend.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you here, son. I'm also gonna go with Jacoby Smith. And like you said, he is just able to mix it up very well. He's great wrestling. He has the power, and his ground and pound is just it's vicious. And I just don't see Nico Price at his age being able to hang in there with a guy like Jacoby Smith. And I see Jacoby Smith honestly dominating this fight and likely walking out of there with a finish. Moving on, have a bout between Terrence T Rex McKinney opposing Vyacheslav Borshev, who, I mean, this is an exciting fight, I will say. Both these guys throw hard, and one of them's likely going out. And I guess the question for you, Son, is which one is it going to be? Which one's going out?
We were talking about this fight right before we hopped on, and I don't think either one of us had a answer at the time. I think now, after thinking about it for a little bit and kind of looking through the stats, and kind of who they fought and who they've beaten, I think I gotta go with Terrence McKinney. I think his loss to Sadikov aged super well, especially since he lost by submission. But I don't know. I mean, McKinney's been on a pretty good tear recently. He lost that fight to Ribovics. And I don't know. I think it's going to be a good bounce back fight for him. Borshev is good. He's a really good fighter, but I don't know. I just don't think he has that much of an edge against McKinney. And I don't see that many avenues for him winning this fight as much as I do for McKinney. I think he's a lot more fluid. He can change up his style a lot more than Borshev can. Not saying that that's going to be a huge factor in this fight, but I just think McKinney's a little bit more dynamic and he'll be able to get more strikes out, and hopefully getting a finish this weekend. And he's got a little bit of an age, edge to him too. So I'm going McKinney here. Hopefully we're seeing a finish, a nice knockout. But if not, we're going to see some bloody mats.
Yeah, my thing with this fight is it seems like Terrence McKinney almost needs like a round one finish to win. And that's like
Mhm.
kind of Terrence McKinney's thing. And maybe you can find one here, actually, but Borshev's a tough striker. So if he's gonna stand and bang with Borshev, I don't know, like he can get clipped. And it seems like Terrence McKinney, like he has been put out, like Esteban Rivovics put him out. I know he got submitted by Nazim Sadikov. But Borshev doesn't really have any wrestling. So if Terrence McKinney were to go out there with a game plan, I see him finding success there with the wrestling. Like Terrence McKinney can grapple very well, and Borshev can't defend it. So it seems to be like the route to victory that I think makes the most sense. But even then, I just do see more ways in which Terrence McKinney can win because I do think he is able to win that striking battle as well. Like I think he can find his shot. He's extremely powerful. We've seen it a numerous amount of times. So I guess that kind of double edged sword there of having multiple routes to victory has me leaning McKinney as well. Moving on, we have a women's flyweight bout between Viviane Arujau and Tracy Cortez. Tracy, let's go. All right, Son. I'm gonna let you take it from here, and let's hear your opinion on this one.
I have a feeling I know who you're going to pick here. And I'm going the same way. I'm taking Tracy Cortez. Other than obviously being Tracy Cortez, I just think she's, proven herself a lot more. Araujo lost to Silva, Natalia Silva, who, obviously just had a really big last fight, which aged really well. But the rest of her competition is just not really there. I mean, she lost to Grasso, which I think we all kind of agreed that she's kind of good, but not good. So I don't know. I think just competition wise, Tracy Cortez gets it. Plus, she can always take it down on the ground. She's coming off a loss. She against Namajunas, who I think really aged well as a loss too. But I don't know. I think her last two fights, Tracy Cortez's last two fights, were really her like two biggest challenges. To me, the way I see it. So I think those two were just a lot. Those two fighters are a lot. Nama Yunus and Judah Zubakis, or however the hell you say her name, are both better than Araujo, in my opinion. I guess there's not much else to say there. I think I'm just gonna go Tracy Cortez here and happily watch the fight Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. Where Tracy Cortez just really should be better about everywhere. Like she should be the better striker here. If Vivian wants to wrestle her, I think Cortez should be able to defend everything. If Cortez wants to wrestle, I think she can find success. And she's just fought the tougher ladies thus far, like you were touching on, San. So I think everything in my mind is pointing to Tracy Cortez. As long as she's able to go out there and perform, I think she should be able to get this one done. And it's maybe even like a 30-27 fashion. But one thing I will say is I saw like the over under on this fight, like 2.5 rounds was like the over is minus 600. So very likely to go to a decision here. But yeah, I see Tracy Cortez edging out that decision. Moving on, we have a very fun featherweight bout between Hyder Emil and Jose Delgado. We talked about Delgado in the past, at least I have. I'm very high on Delgado's skill set. Like I think he's going to be top of the division type fighter in the future. But on the other side, you have the undefeated Hyder Emil, who just has that crazy gas tank and just goes out there, puts on fun performances. And both these guys are extremely well rounded. So with that being said, Son, I kind of want to hear where your mind goes with this fight.
Well, I can't take Delgado here, especially after our newly made friend Conor Matthews was his last fight. I can't accept that. First of all, just to stay loyal to the soil here. But on the other side of the coin, Emil Hyderville is really good. I mean, his output's great. He's getting, really good knockout wins to start his UFC career. Kind of had a little bit of trouble with Gomez going with that split decision there. I know some people kind of said Gomez won that fight, but he was a pretty tough fight for him. But I just don't think that he's gonna see something this weekend that he hasn't seen in the past. I think Delgado's really good, but I don't know, dude. Hyder Mill just can take a punch, and he's pretty durable, and I think that's kind of what you need against a guy like Delgado. And yeah, I'm just gonna rock with Hyder and Mill here. I think he's gonna take this one. He's gonna keep his undefeated record. Um, yeah, I mean, I think low key Delgado kind of has everything like from range to height and all this stuff, all the size advantages he could have. But Emil's super quick, and I think he'll be able to take in the inside and with his output, his striking output, be able to get at least that decision win.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on the other side here, and I'm gonna go with Jose Delgado. Like you were touching on, you're alluding to, Delgado does have those physical advantages there, and that's not even what necessarily sells me on him. I just think, well, both these guys they're both extremely well rounded. Don't get me wrong here, and I guess my worry for Delgado comes down to Hyder Emil's pressure because he's such a forward fighter and he makes you work so hard, and it's just constant. Like it's that constant pace, and we haven't seen Delgado go 3 rounds, and he's young, so I could see like the veteranship of Hyder Emil playing a factor here comes around 2 and 3. We've seen that happen plenty of times with these young fighters, but I don't know. I think Jose Delgado kind of just has that it factor a little bit. Like he's cold, man, and he hits
Yeah.
fucking hard. His output is hefty. Like he throws a lot. He can wrestle very well. I don't see Hyder Emil like abusing him in the grappling department at all. And I can see Delgado kind of just out striking, out voluming Hyder Emil with some of those bigger shots because even when you see Delgado just throw like a right straight, like that shit fucking snaps. And it's like, okay, like that kid has power. That can put people out. And I think that threat's just gonna be there. But what I mean, like I just basically touched on, my biggest concern for Delgado is just being in there with that veteran who's going to make you work extremely hard for 3 rounds. So I think come like round two, maybe even like end of round one, where you could be like, oh man, okay, Delgado got this round, but we're seeing things that start turning. That's when I'd be like, okay, if you're betting on Delgado, maybe you go and hit that Hyder Emil live bet because he might turn on rounds 2 and 3. But I don't know. While I do think it's extremely close, I'm going to err on the side of Jose Delgado. And moving on to our featured prelim, we have a middleweight bout between Jack Hermansson against Gregory Robocop Rodrigues. Hermansson's making his, I guess, long-awaited return. He beat up Joe Pyfer. It was a 3-2 and 48-47 fight in which he outlasted Joe Pyfer. But that was back in 2023. I forget what month particularly in 2023, actually. I have it in front of me. I was back in, that was 16 months ago. So it's been a while. It's been a while for Jack Hermansson here. And Gregory Rodrigues is coming off that knockout loss not too long ago, early in the year against Jared Cannonier. So interesting coming into this fight, given both those guys' trajectories. But I don't know. This should be a fucking fun one, man, because both these guys can hit. Both these guys can hit hard, and both these guys are very good. Let's hear your thoughts on.
I had a pretty tough time, honestly, with this one. I think Hermanson obviously has fought a lot more quality dudes than RoboCop. But on the same side of that, I think RoboCop's just held up so well, even with his age and everything. He's just like he has surprised me. I mean, he looks good. His physique looks great. He's always in shape. And he's been having some pretty impressive wins, recently. Obviously, discounting the Jared Cannonier fight, he's got some knockouts and a lot of knockouts actually. So I don't know. I think that the hiatus that Hermanson that Jack took is kind of really going to be the thing that puts me over the edge for RoboCop here. I think taking that much time off is going to add a little bit of ring rust, and I think dropping that initial round in Rodrigues and leaving yourself a little bit exposed to kind of get acclimated in the ring again is really tough against a guy like Gregory Rodrigues. I mean, he will capitalize if he sees that opportunity, and I see this as a fight that he could get a pretty early knockout in, especially if he's catching Hermanson kind of lacking a little bit in that first round, maybe moving a little bit slow. RoboCop's in really good shape. He's pretty quick still for his size. And I don't know. I think he's going to get it done, and I think he could probably get a knockout off in this fight.
Yeah, when I'm looking at this fight, so obviously Jack Hermansson picked up that win over Joe Pyfer, which is a big win. But in that fight, Joe Pyfer took rounds 1 and 2 pretty comfortably, and then the gas tank gave out, and that's where Hermansson took over in rounds 3, 4, 5, 5-round fight. Gregory Rodrigues coming off that loss to Jared Cannonier, very similar to how Jack Hermansson won, where Gregory Rodrigues came out hot. He actually knocked down Jared Cannonier 2 times, I believe, in round 1. Didn't find the finish, and then gassed out, and Cannonier took over rounds like 3. And you might have found a round 3 finish, or it was round 4, but the tide turned once RoboCop kind of gassed out there. So I do believe the 3-round fight here does significantly advantage Gregory Rodrigues. The long layoff for Jack Hermansson as well favors Gregory Rodrigues. The only thing that scares me here for RoboCop is Jack Hermansson is very good at fighting at range. He can kind of pick guys apart at range, sits there, and I see him being able to do that to RoboCop as well. Like I can see RoboCop getting frustrated, sitting there at range, then he kind of has to blitz and create something. Hermansson does have a lot of power as well. So I could see that being problematic. And if Hermansson is able to just tap him at range and he's able to keep that range, I mean, there's a chance he just can outstrike his way to a decision on the outside. But I do like the upside here for RoboCop. I see him starting hot. Hermansson on the other side, like you alluded to, Son, I could see starting out a little slower. And yeah, I'm gonna err on the side of RoboCop here, but that should be a very fun fight to segue us into this main card. And speaking of that main card, opening it up is a bantamweight matchup between Peyton Talbott and Felipe Lima. 2 prospects here. Talbot kind of losing a little bit of his momentum coming off that decision loss there to Raoni Barcelos. But Felipe Lima on the other side, picking up a nice UD over Miles John in his last outing. Son, I'll let you take it from here. Are you siding with your fellow Brazilian against Peyton Talbot?
Yeah, I'm going Felipe Lima here. I think to me, it's just kind of I I guess two things. I think Lima's just a better fighter in general. But I do think Talbot really like disappointed me in that last fight. Obviously, I think that fight aged a little bit better with the Barcelos win last weekend. He did it in a good fashion. But I think I don't know. I think Talbot was kind of just one of those guys that was a little bit pushed onto us, given a lot of favorable matchups. He's been getting a lot of cushion fights coming in the UFC. They've been given like a really good platform. Obviously, he brings in a lot of views. He's an exciting new fighter, kind of very different kind of guy. A little bit of like not Sean Strickland, Sean O'Malley type of flair to him, I guess. But yeah, I think that's kind of all he is. I think Barcelo really exposed him last fight too. So I'm not too big on Talbot after his last fight. Obviously, he's had a very impressive career. Other than that last fight. He's been putting on some really good performances. He looks like a superstar out there. But I don't know. I think Felipe Lima too has just fought a lot better competition coming in the UFC. He's pretty tried and true. I mean, Naimov, the guy we also saw last weekend, very good fighter. And then his last fight against Miles Johns, which is also a pretty decent fighter as well. And I don't know. I think Lima's just a cool guy. I rock with him. I think that's another guy that I want out of Brazil to be doing really well in the UFC. I think he has a lot of upside coming in the UFC, and he's got a lot of opportunities. I think this Talbot fight's going to give him a chance to kind of really hammer home, how good of a fighter he is, especially if he can get in those grappling exchanges, because we know how efficient he can be in there and put somebody away with the submissions. So I don't know. It's a really tough fight. I think the odds being skewed in Lima's favor are kind of a little bit surprising to me, just because of how high the UFC ranks him as just like a fighter and a prospect. But yeah, I am going Lima. I think I was probably going to go Lima regardless. I was also just really disappointed in that last performance by Talbot. And that's kind of really what eventually brought me over to the Lima side for this fight.
I'm not ready to sell my Peyton Talbot stock just yet. Peyton Talbot, well, yes, that loss to Ryan Barcelos was not ideal by any means. We've seen this kind of stuff happen before. We saw something similar happen with Raul Rosas when you go in there and fight a veteran. Luke's talked about it before, and they just game plan really well. And he game planned very well for Peyton Talbot, and he was able to go out there. He was able to take him down. He was able to rack up the control time, and he won that fight decisively. But I do think that was a very big learning curve for Peyton Talbot. Peyton Talbot is still he's still an extremely talented striker. His output is crazy. He hits like a fucking truck. And I don't think his grappling is all that bad. His takedown defense is all right. He's always working back up. And he's not going to gas out either. He has a good gas tank. And I expect that to hold up here against Felipe Lima. And while I am very high on Felipe Lima as well, I'm going to err on the side of Peyton Talbot here when I'm kind of this indecisive about a fight, and you have the underdog sitting there, and it's kind of getting sizably more in the other favor. Something's telling me take Peyton Talbot, and yeah, I'm going to go with my gut here. I like his striking upside. I like his striking output, and I think his grappling hopefully can hold up for the most part. But if not, then yeah, Felipe Lima is going to take over, and we'll see what happens there. One more thing before I even move on to about the grappling as well is if Talbot is able to consistently work back up, it's very tiring to continuously take down a fighter. And Felipe Lima is going to have to work for that. And I do think Talbot's gas tank does check out. So I could see if Talbot is able to work back up, come like midway through round 2 and round 3, if Felipe Lima does tire, I can see him struggling more so to secure those takedowns later in the fight, and it's just opening up Talbot striking even more. So I could see Talbot kind of picking up even later on in this fight as well. All right, I had to catch my breath there for a second. That was a bit of a rant, but moving on, we have a flyweight bout between the number 1 ranked Brandon Royval opposing the fan favorite Joshua Van. I don't know if anyone wants Joshua Van to lose because goddamn, that kid is fucking fun. But this is a tough matchup climbing all the way up the rankings to number one against Brandon Royval. I don't know, Son. What do you think about this one?
The first time we announced this fight, when it first came out that he was, stepping in for this fight, I thought Joshua Van, because of that, we had just seen him get that last knockout win, and I thought Joshua Van was going to take this fight. But, after watching some more film on Brandon Royval and seeing his last few fights, I mean, he's just so damn good, dude. He like can pull any trick out of any box whenever he wants out of in the middle of the fight. I mean, beating Moreno, that was a great fight. I think he won that one pretty well. I know it was a split decision, but I think he won that one pretty well. And then Tairo as well, another split decision. Um, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going Joshua Van here. I think the kid's gonna excite us. I was really just working myself up to say Brandon Royval is gonna win this fight, but I don't know, dude. Those last two split decisions really just threw me off, and I think Joshua Van's a guy that is just so active, and he's so okay with being active. He's gonna be able to take this one. His output's ridiculous. Um, like his performances kind of speak for themselves. I mean, he's obviously a really good fighter. And I don't know. I think Royval's kind of just touched the top a little bit too much and just has not been able to capitalize. And I think it might be his time to down a few spots and make way for our boy Joshua Van.
Unfortunately, I disagree with you here. Brendan Royval, I think, just kind of poses problems that Joshua Van is susceptible to. One of which is that frame of Brandon Royval. It's kind of similar in a way, kind of similar to Charles Johnson. And we saw the threats that Charles Johnson posed to Joshua Van. He ended up finding that knockout win, I believe, round three. And another thing as well is Brandon Royval is a pretty damn unorthodox striker. And with Joshua Van's like traditional high volume boxing, I could see that also posing some problems. And Joshua Van just kind of starts slow in some fights. We've seen him work on that recently, and that hasn't been as big of a problem as last couple fights. But prior to that, round one was always a little bit slow. Then he'd work into it, and then it was like, okay, now I'm going. Now I'm fucking bang, 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 bang. Here's everything. And if he does start slow against Brandon Royval and he drops round one, I don't think he's going to find a way to squeak out this 3-round decision. I think Brandon Royval holds the advantage in all the grappling departments. I think he's just bigger, has the range, and I think Joshua Van is a little bit overpriced recently because of how highly touted he is from like the fan perspective and just kind of like that hype. I don't know if highly touted was the right word, but it's just that like constant hype train. And it's just a massive step up in competition going from fighting Bruno Silva to Brandon Royval. And I just think with that, it's just taking too big of a bite out of the apple here. And yeah, I'm going to have to side with Brandon Royval. But with that being said, I don't think a loss here is really does any harm to Joshua Van. He's still that 23-year-old prospect up and coming who will be fighting for the belt for a long time. But I'm going to have to side with the veteran Brandon Royval.
Yeah, I had a really tough time, obviously, because I literally just switched my mind again. I mean, I was getting ready to make that case for Royval. But I don't know, dude. Something about this kid is just different to me. When I see somebody that active and he's that successful with his activity, it's not like he's stepping in on late notice and losing fights. He's stepping in, he's winning, he's performing very well, and his output is undeniable. Like I said it
Mm-hmm.
earlier in the stream, when I see somebody with that output, it's just like it just does something in my mind where I'm just like, I know this guy is like gonna throw hands out there, and I just love that in a fighter. But I agree. I mean, even if he does lose this fight, especially if it goes to decision, I can see him even moving up in the rankings from this, depending on how he takes his challenge and how well he adjusts in there. And if he wins a round even against Royval, I think he gets a big rank up here because I think he's pretty low rank right now, especially
Yeah,
being a
man.
favorite against a number one contender right now.
This is like a perfect kind of can't lose for Joshua Van. Outside of the fact that it's like, okay, you can get knocked out, then you lose. I understand. But this is that like can't lose situation where you're climbing all the way up, fighting the number one ranked fighter at 23 years old. You have really no real risk. It's just a pure reward situation. You're the 12th ranked fighter. You're not going down from where you're at. And you can lose the fight, put on a good performance. You're going to gain a ton of fans. You, like you just said, maybe even move up, or you go and beat the number one ranked Brandon Royval, and then you're fighting for the belt at 24 years old. So very well played on his behalf because he's only going up from here, man. And he's just so young and so talented. Moving on to the lightweight division, we have a bout that has now been rescheduled. I think this is the third time it's been booked. Maybe it's the second, but for some reason I'm thinking third. We have Beneil Dariush opposing Renato Moicano. Son, Moicano's your boy. I think enough said, man. Are you going with your boy here?
Yeah, I'm riding with the money man here. I think that last fight, obviously against Islam, very tough, very kind of. We were talking about it a little bit. I mean, he even mentioned it, I think, on an interview or two, or just messing around. He was like, "Oh yeah, no, I can afford to lose now," because obviously that last fight did a lot for him financially. I think just stepping in like that and taking the guy that he took on. I mean, they definitely paid him very well. But I don't think that stops Beneil Dariush from being easy money for the kid. I say kid, but he's older than me by like 10 years. But yeah, I don't know. I think before that Islam fight, I do know. Not I don't know. I do know. Moicano's going to win this fight. His streak before that Islam fight was unreal. I mean, he was doing so well, beating those guys up the way he did. Getting some knockouts, getting some stuff like that, and some good decisions. I don't know. I just don't see him losing to a Beneil Dariush that's on a four fight winning streak, three fight or losing streak.
Two.
Yeah, two. But he's been spotty before that. So I don't know. I don't think Dariush takes this one from Moicano. I think Moicano's still pretty in really good shape. I think they're the same age, aren't they? They might be. Um,
Yeah.
even though Dariush looks, a hell of a lot older than him. But I don't know. I think Moicano's just in good shape. I think he's been in good spirits. I watch his podcast a lot. A lot of the clips they get from that. I'm a big fan of his, and I think he's going to be able to get it done this week, and hopefully by submission. I'd love to see a grappling exchange from these two. Both very high level grapplers. But I think Moicano also wins on the feet too. So I think there's just more avenues for him to win. And Dariush just hasn't been having the best few fights recently, which is kind of hard to deny. So I'm going the money man, Moicano here, and hoping for the best. It's going to be a good fight.
Dude, I've been pretty heavily on the side of Moicano at least the last time we predicted this fight. But it's weird because like things have changed since then. Obviously, Moicano fought Islam, lost that, and he's going from being on that like heater of a 4-fight win streak, 3 of which coming by finish, to now coming off the high of fighting for the belt, and now you're sitting here and it's like, okay, where am I finding that motivation and whatnot? So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, what is he going to look like? And you can flip the script and be like, what the fuck's Beneil Dariush gonna look like? Because his last outing was 18 months ago in which he got knocked out by Arman Sarukian. And then his outing before that was another 6 months before that where he got knocked out by Charles Oliveira. And then you look at it and you're like, okay, his only win in the last 4 years was that decision against Mateusz Gamrot, in which he did look very good, do not get me wrong. Moicano has picked up 4 or 5 wins in that time frame. So I'm struggling to kind of think about what each of these guys is going to look like. One thing I will say is I think the grappling of both these guys will somewhat negate each other. I don't see Moicano really taking down Beneil Dariush. I don't see Beneil Dariush really taking down Moicano. I would be very intrigued. I'm very intrigued to see who gets the better of those grappling situations because both those guys are very capable. So I'm kind of expecting a kickboxing fight between the two, in which I'm going to err on the side of Renato Moicano, but I do think it's going to be close. So, yes, I will agree with you on this one, Son. I will go with Renato Moicano to get the job done here. I think he gets the job done by decision, but I do think it's a close fight. I think we're going to see like a 29-28 decision here for the money man.
Yeah, I mean, Dariush has been a bit chinny recently. Obviously not recently because he hasn't fought in a while, but he's just so chinny now. And Moicano's picked up a lot of impressive KO wins against some serious challengers. So I think his kickboxing, in my mind, is better than Dariush's. And if you are right about the submission and grappling part of it, I think we might be seeing a money man knockout this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Dariush isn't a terrible striker either. But yeah, I favor Moicano, and Dariush is coming off back-to-back knockout losses. Granted, the last one was 18 months ago, so it is a lot of time off. And Moicano had a stretch of his career where he was getting knocked out, but that was against like Jose Aldo, the Korean Zombie, Rafael Fiziev, and I don't think that Dariush is holding that power. But yeah, I agree with you, son. I'm erring on the side of Moicano here. I think maybe he can find a knockout. He just kind of stiffs him with a straight right and sits him down, gets on top, ground and pound. Maybe I could see that happening. But yeah, I like the Moicano call. Moving on, we have our first title fight of the evening. We have the flyweight king, Alexandre Pantoja, taking on the Australian man, Kai Kara France. If you guys have listened to this pod before, you would know I am a massive Alexandre Pantoja fan. I think the guy is just phenomenal everywhere. I think his striking is great. His grappling is next level. And he just appears to be a level above all of these other flyweights. And he's appeared to be a level above for all these flyweights for kind of a minute now. And the guy he's opposing, Kai Kara France, does have absolute dynamite in his hands. He has that knockout power, but I don't know. I don't see him finding the finish here over Pantoja. I see Pantoja out grappling Kai Kara France. I see him backpacking him. I see a submission potentially in play. We saw Kai Kara France folded by Brandon Moreno by a body shot. Alexandre Pantoja has some power too. He can, he can fucking pop. I kind of see him just beating up on Kai Kara France here as long as he's able to stay out of that big power strike. And I see him picking up a decisive victory. Now, son, let's hear your opinion. Sorry for the long little rant there.
No, I mean you're all good. You kind of took the words out of my mouth. I don't think there's a single part of Kai Kara France's game that's better than Pantoja's game. Striking, Pantoja's got the edge. Grappling, Pantoja's got the edge. Experienced, Pantoja's got the edge. And when you go into that experience, not to do MMA math, but I think with Pantoja you can do whatever the hell you want. He's beaten every single person that Kai Kara France has lost to. So I mean, like, I just don't see unless there's something very exciting, which is super possible from this guy. That's the one thing that I kind of see from him is he could get, a flash knockout on Pantoja, but his chin is held up so well. I really don't think I see that happening. And Pantoja is just a guy that he's so likable, first of all, inside and outside of the ring. He's a very nice guy. If you hear his interviews and stuff like that, he's just a cool dude, very good champion, super humble champion too. I think that's a big thing about it. He still has this huge chip on his shoulder, even though he is the champion. I remember when he, got the belt and the UFC belt. He was, shouting out his dad and saying, "Are you proud of me? Are you proud of me?" And he won the belt. It's like you don't have anything to prove to anybody, and you're still out here, kind of with that massive chip on your shoulder. So I think the mentality and the mental game of it too. He's also got that huge advantage over Kai Kara France, who is a guy that's been given opportunities time and time again, and just when he reaches that peak, he just can't perform. So I definitely agree with you. I think this is a huge opportunity for Pantoja to get an exciting, not decision win this weekend. Kara France has been exposed a few times by the likes of, guys like Royval, who I think submitted him first round, second round. I think it was very early into the fight. So I don't know. I think Pantoja is just going to walk over him out there. Sucks to say because Kai Kara France is a really cool fighter. I've always supported him, but I can't support anybody but Pantoja when he's out there on that canvas. I think he's just levels above everybody else in that division.
And I've been saying this recently where people ask me, like, who's your favorite fighter? Who's your favorite fighter? And I'm like, I don't even know if I have one. But if I were to pick between a couple guys, if I were to throw a couple names out there, Alexandre Pantoja is definitely one of them. Up there with probably Corey Sandhagen and maybe Mauricio Rufy right now. So I guess I have three. But Alexandre Pantoja is one of those guys that I just fucking love watching. He's just constantly working, constantly doing everything. He mixes up the wrestling and the striking so damn well. His jiu-jitsu is next level. He can do it all. And I really hope he goes out there on Saturday and puts on a masterclass. And I do see him doing so. And moving on to the main event of the evening, we have a lightweight title bout between the former featherweight champ, Ilia Topuria opposing the former lightweight champ, Charles "Du Bronx" Oliveira. Son, I'm going to let you start this one off, and the floor is yours, my friend. Let's hear your take.
You know, is Ilia Topuria probably going to knock him out? Yeah. Am I going to die on my shield and die on the hill that the champion has a name and it's not Ilia Topuria and it's not Islam Makhachev and it's Charles Oliveira? I will die on that hill. Absolutely. 10 out of 10 times. I don't care who's in that octagon with him. I've seen this dude's entire career flash before my eyes, and I've seen how great he is. At like fight after fight, this dude gets dropped and then chokes somebody out. I will bet on that guy every single time. His will is crazy. This dude is unreal. I think obviously a very tough fight against Ilia, but Ilia is a lot smaller than him. And I don't want to get too crazy with what I'm saying here because obviously Ilia is a very, very good fighter, very skilled fighter. I'm sure he'll have some words to say about him. But I'm taking Charles Oliveira here. I don't care if he's projected to lose. I don't care if he's a plus 5,000 underdog. I'll always side with him. I really think he's one of the greatest fighters to ever step in that octagon. I think the amount of finishes he has is just unreal. Submissions, unreal. I think Topuria is going to be in a very, very tough spot at some point in this fight. And if Charles can capitalize on that, that's going to be the end of it. Even with the Sarukian fight, some people argue that Charles won that fight. I'll argue that too. He had him in a headlock 2 times, really tight, almost got that finish. One time he lost it because Sarukian decided to get naked in the middle of the fucking octagon. So if those were, skin tight shorts and didn't want to, loosely come off, I think Charles gets that submission every single time. But I think, situations were different. Obviously that didn't happen. But I cannot pick against Charles Oliveira. He is just so damn good to me. He's made me a lot of money throughout my career as a professional amateur sports bettor. And I just can't do it, dude. I feel like I'm like stabbing my dad in the heart or like stabbing my own brother in the heart, I feel like it's just one of those huge betrayals if I'm ever sitting on here and betting against Charles Oliveira. So I'll take Charles by sub. Hopefully he rips that little munchkin's head off. And hopefully he doesn't get his head taken off.
Before I get on with mine here, our fellow co-host Ryan left me a text message with some of his thoughts, and I'll read them for you. For the main event, if you want my opinion, take it at this. Ilia has better boxing, is more technical, more measured with the shots, and displays a very high fight IQ. But Charles at plus 320 is God's gift.
I agree. I mean, I think the illuminated fighter of God deserves your bets, first of all. I think that money is just like way too much value for a guy like Charles. He's never been an underdog, since his reign in the division. He has never been an underdog this big. And I think he should have been a bigger underdog for the Islam fight, if anything. But plus 300, whatever it was, is just crazy to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that line is crazy. But with my opinion and my pick here, I am going with Ilia Topuria via murder. Dude, this guy's precision is just next level. He throws so tight. He's so precise. He's so smart. He knows where that off button is. And Charles gets hit. And Charles is likely going to try to walk down Ilia. He's going to try to walk forward. And Charles has that style where he's fine with getting hit because it's like, okay, I can get hit because when I do, I have this, okay, I can sit there, I can pull guard, I can pull guard, I can sit there on my ass. You're not going to come down with me because I know you don't want to be here on the ground. Ilia Topuria, I don't think there's any problem with going down there with him on the ground. If he were to start Charles Oliveira and Oliveira goes to pull guard, I think Ilia would likely follow it up with maybe an elbow coming down and then likely similar to Islam, he might sit there, try to do some sort of ground and pound, maybe try to find a head and arm and just have that downward forward pressure. And I just hate this matchup for Charles Oliveira. And I've actually said this ever since Ilia Topuria made the decision to move up to the lightweight division. The whole thing I've always said, I go, this is a nightmare of a matchup for Charles the Bronx Oliveira because Ilia Topuria can do it absolutely everywhere. And his power and his precision is just so next level. And I understand he's moving up from the featherweight to lightweight division, but I do believe his whole skill set will translate in this division very well. And I see him finding that off button somewhere, and probably at some time pretty early too. And I'm gonna pick a rounds 1 through 3 knockout here for the former featherweight champ and soon to be next lightweight champ, Ilia Topuria. Sorry, son, I didn't want to do it to you like that, but
No,
I
you're
just don't see
good.
this guy losing, man.
No, I just think it's kind of, I mean, it's obviously very fair. I mean, Ilya is undeniably good. To me, it's just the size difference is so crazy to me. Like, you can put on an extra 10 pounds, but you can't, put on a few extra inches. And that goes for all facets of life and whatever you think I'm referring to. But you're not going to grow your arm length and you're not going to grow your leg length. Charles has a very big advantage in both of those. I mean, even against a guy like Chandler, Charles goes out there and looks a lot bigger than him, and Chandler's a pretty beefy dude. So I'm very excited to see how these guys look at face-offs. I know we've probably seen a few just over the clips and stuff, but I think I'm very excited to see them at these weigh-ins and see how they're looking against each other. I think that's really going to be a good tell of who's taking this fight. But yeah, that size difference is just something that I think is like so easy for Charles to be able to take an advantage of, and maybe even get a submission out of there. But I'm super excited for this fight. I mean, I hated it when they announced it because I was like, I mean, either I'm seeing Charles lose here, or it's going to be a very very tough fight for him to win, and I'm going to be kind of biting my nails watching that fight. Excuse me. But yeah, no, I hate it when it came out, but I am very excited to see it this weekend. I think Charles has a really cool chance if he can get a finish this weekend. I think he can do something that I don't think a single fan of the UFC would be upset at. If you can put Ilya out, on his feet, if you can submit him some way, I think just the whole world's going to erupt if that happens. So I'm really hoping for that. I'm really hoping he can get a finish against a guy as crazy skilled and powerful as Ilia Topuria.
Yeah, I agree. This should be a banger of a fight, and I would love to see Charles find a way to get a win here. That would be awesome. I think that would make almost every single MMA fan's heart at whole again. But I just don't I unfortunately don't see it happening.
Yeah.
But hey, man, that's why they fight on Saturdays, and we're gonna see it go down this Saturday night. And with that being said, that's all I got for tonight. Son, I don't know if you have anything left.
Nah, just we got a lot of exciting stuff coming out. So if you're still listening, keep an eye out. We have some nice content for you guys coming up.
100%. And if you guys like the video, please drop a like, sub. Everything helps. And enjoy the card this weekend. Hopefully, we can all make some money.